Politics in 2040 will revolve around three central issues: AI governance, economic inequality, and climate adaptation. In general, all three of these things require some form of government intervention, and honestly, I do not think that the current Republican administration is in a strong position or is going to be in a strong position as we head into the late 2020s. I think in the United States, progressive movements and progressive politics and progressive candidates will be popular throughout the 2030s. Basically, I think progressive politics are going to dominate throughout the 2030s because of lingering mistrust and anger towards the prior Republican administration of the late 2020s, and that the issues of the 2030s all require government intervention and not simply relying on the free market policies and the hope that the invisible hand will create a favorable condition for our society to live in. The shift towards the left will not just be an American phenomenon. It will be a global experience. In 2030, for North America, for example, Mexico will elect Clara Brugada Molina, the current mayor of Mexico City, as its president for the majority of the 2030s, as that has seemed to be the current bellwether who will lead the world's largest Spanish-speaking country. She will continue Morena left-wing dominance in Mexico. Mark Carney of Canada will step down in 2040 after serving as PM for 15 years. In 2029, I think the international community will set up a global AI automation and robotics governing organization, much like the current UN-sponsored International Atomic Energy Agency, which governs how countries around the world utilize nuclear energy for peaceful purposes and conducts routine inspections to determine if those countries are continuing to use their nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. This new AI automation and robotics governing body will conduct routine inspections in every country around the world to ensure that they are complying with current UN-sponsored AI automation and robotic laws. If a country is found to not be in compliance with these laws, it will be up to the United Nations and the Security Council to determine what action may be necessary to ensure that country returns back to being AI compliant. I think in the coming years, perhaps as soon as 2028, we will see the first countries face sanctions and international pressure for pursuing a rogue AI development program. However, political leadership and military commanders will have to consider the differences between a country pursuing a nuclear weapons program and the still catastrophic but relatively contained explosion of a nuclear weapon versus the end-of-the-world scenario of a super-intelligent artificial intelligence going rogue and initiating a doomsday campaign against the human race. Sanctions and an international pressure campaign may not be enough. The international community might have to rapidly assemble a military coalition to invade the country and establish international AI regulations and stop the development of any potential rogue AI technology. One prominent AI researcher put it, "If anyone built it, everyone dies." And that will be the big predicament that the United Nations Security Council and other leadership within that global organization will face in the 2030s. How to facilitate the growth and the development of a technology that has the potential to help humanity ascend to the next level, while regulating it in a manner that will prevent Judgment Day. AI regulation will be the most important political topics worldwide. Governments will need to balance innovation with control. Economic inequality, especially between those who benefit from automation and those who don't, will drive political movements and policy decisions. Climate adoption will no longer be a future issue. It will be an ongoing, immediate concern. Political divisions may be less about traditional left versus right and more about tech integration versus resistance, and global cooperation versus regional interdependence. Younger generations, shaped by the instability of the 2020s and 2030s, will dominate the political landscape. The youngest generation Alpha will begin to vote by 2032. Just think where each generation will be when 2040 arrives. The silent generation will be in their 90s. The last of the World War II vets will have died. The baby boomers will be in their 70s and to early 90s. Most will have left the workforce and retired. Generation X will be in their 60s and 70s. They will either be preparing for retirement or will be in top leadership positions at companies themselves. Retirement will cause a lot of contention in American politics since the government's own accounting agencies expect Social Security benefits to run out by the early 2030s. Millions of Americans over 65 plus will be faced with the daunting prospect that their income may cease to exist. However, I think the government will come to a last-minute solution. It will involve hard decisions involving moving money around the federal budget, most likely from the military budget, as well as raising taxes on all income groups. Millennials will be in their 40s and 50s. This generation will be in an awkward position once the AI and robotics revolution completes revamping the job market. Too young to just consider the relatively simple answer of retirement, but too old to enjoy the potential upsides of widespread universal basic income. Gen Z will be in their 40s to late 20s. Gen Alpha will be the young adults to young adolescents. Generation Alpha will be the true digital nomads. They will be the AI generation. They will be the new punching bag generation. Generation Beta will be the newest generation to start making their mark on the world. They will grow up in a foreign world transformed by technology, social change, climate change, and societal upheaval. By 2030, the United States will legalize marijuana on the federal level. Countless people will have their records expunged and opportunities will open up for millions more people. States and other countries will look into loosening restrictions on the use of psychedelic substances. Globally, there will be countries that will be open to immigration, while there will be others that remain difficult destinations to immigrate to. If you are familiar with the European Union, you will probably have heard of the Schengen Plan, which is basically an agreement within the bloc among member states that permits registered citizens within those countries to live, work, and visit visa and hassle-free to other member states. While this already kinda exists internationally due to current immigration deals and various countries' lax enforcement on immigration, there will be an official international Schengen system established in the 2030s, with many first world countries being considered members. The European Union, Australia, Canada, and several other countries will be founding members. In 2025, roughly 3% of Americans owned an electric car. By 2040, through a mix of government programs and changing attitudes towards electric cars, 33% or one-third of Americans will operate an electric car. They will be the most popular in big cities, small states and territories like Rhode Island, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, and progressive communities across the country. As many as half the drivers in these areas may possess an electric car. There will still be opposition to electric cars in the South, East, Mountain West, or any location that requires long travel or strenuous work for vehicles. By 2040, many trends from the 2020s and 2030s will intensify. Marriage and birth rates in developed countries will likely remain low. Digital companionship and AI-assisted relationships will be normalized, though still debated socially and ethically. There will continue to be two major cultural directions: deep technological integration and intentional low-tech or offline lifestyles. Communities may become more self-selecting based on those values. Economic pressure will continue to influence relationships. lifestyle choices, and family structures. Fashion will follow three themes: environmental sustainability, economic savviness, and testing the boundaries of what can be shown off in public. Cultures and society will become more inclusive, and everyone will need to work together to navigate the future world. By 2040, climate change will no longer be discussed in terms of prediction, but in terms of management. Extreme heat, especially in regions like the American Southwest, will be more intense and prolonged. 2-month-long periods of 110-degree heat will be normal across the region. Water scarcity will be a major issue affecting daily life. Governments will invest heavily in desalination, conservation, and infrastructure. For close to a century, the Hoover Dam was the biggest provider of water and electricity to Arizona and neighboring states. Even parts of Mexico relied on its existence for survival. However, the tables will be turned in the 2030s. Arizona and Mexico are working on constructing a desalination plant in Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point, to supply Arizona and Mexico with desalinated ocean water from the Sea of Cortez. Estimates for the project to be completed will be by 2031, but I'm going to say 2032 because all this stuff is always delayed. It still won't be enough to account for the loss of water from the Colorado River system. Just enough for residential human consumption, drinking, bathing, washing clothes, etc. The agricultural industry in the Southwest will be a shell of what it once was. Once fertile farmland will lie dry and barren. Abandoned farm industry buildings and equipment will litter the landscape. Mexico will also be in control of Arizona's main water source. It will be more important than ever that both governments at the state and federal level move past their current differences and construct a mutually beneficial partnership. The major issues that began bubbling up during the late 2020s will blow up into a complete existential crisis for the region once 2030 rolls around. The federal and state governments will enact last-minute emergency water measures to maintain stability in the region till the completion of the desalination plant. These water conservation measures will be draconian. No golf courses, no agricultural activity. Industrial mining and construction water use must be kept on an absolute minimum. I'm thinking of the use of water trucks currently being used to reduce dust pollution. It's either dust pollution reduction or water conservation. All structures, residential, commercial, or otherwise, will be required to adapt to the latest plumbing to ensure less water is used. Criminal punishments for water waste will be increased. As the ground dries up more than it already is, more vegetation will die off, and this will not keep the topsoil down. Dust storms will become more common whenever a new storm system rolls into the region. Maybe not Dust Bowl level of intense, but they will become more common than they are today. Residents will have to choose between paying their water bills or deferring the bill to prioritize other expenses. We will look back on the 2020s and realize how much we took water for granted. Basically, the Sun Belt becomes more uninhabitable, whether you live in Florida or you live on the other side of the country in California. The United States will witness a demographic shift. For decades, the coasts have been a top destination for Americans seeking to live in a new location. However, beginning in the late 2020s, I think we will see a reversal. We will see millions of Americans who are currently living on the coast will move inland, many to the Midwest and the Great Plains because of two factors: the changing climate and the cost of living. Climate change is posing a threat to the coast and the Sun Belt. An increasingly rising cost for maintaining a home or living in general are also threats on the coast and in the Sun Belt. I think these two factors will drive many Americans to move inward and north into the Midwest and the Great Plains. Cities like Cincinnati, Kansas City, Omaha, Colorado Springs, and Sioux Falls will see a rise in residents moving into their cities. Alaska will also see a rise in residents moving into the state in the 2030s as the climate makes living in the state more palatable for potential residents considering moving to a new destination. Americans will also increasingly look to avoid urban areas or to move out of urban areas into more suburban or even rural areas in the country, looking for a lower cost of living and the opportunities that remote work provide Americans. Looking for a lower cost of living and the opportunities that remote work provides for Americans. Remote work gives Americans the chance to move to more remote locations that perhaps didn't offer the same job opportunities as in the past. Food supply chains will be more complex and expensive due to environmental pressures. We will see a rise in indoor vertical farming. We will also see lab-grown meat hit the supermarket shelves in the 2030s. There will be 3 categories of meat at your local store: the fake vegan crap, traditional meat from an animal on a farm, and then lab-grown meat. They'll have a sexier name for it, of course. Shortages of certain foods will be more common. Processed foods will be much more expensive due to the rising input and labor costs. Americans will be consuming less and eating a healthier diet as a result of changing views on healthy eating, as well as the effects of climate change on the production of food. Storm intensity will continue to increase, putting strain on infrastructure and insurance systems. The federal government will be forced to update how the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, operates and make sure the agency evolves to tackle the increase in storms across the country. The government will have a government-sponsored home insurance program for housing, as the cost of private home insurance will just be too great for the average American to handle. Any new structures built will be required to follow strict building codes in order to withstand the more intense storms of the future. Houses built near the coastlines may be required to be built on stilts. Houses in the Southwest will be required to ensure that they are energy efficient and use as little water as possible. Homes in the Midwest and Great Plains will be required to have some form of underground tornado shelter. In 2040, the government will have a bigger presence helping Americans manage handling natural disasters and the recovery process afterwards. The central debate will no longer be whether climate change is happening, but how much societies are willing to spend to adapt to it. Where Americans live won't be the only way American demographics will be changing. The average American will be much older. The average age of the average American will be 44. The United States will be more racially and ethnically diverse. According to future projections, the United States will have more than 400 million citizens, whom 20% speak Spanish. In 2040, the United States will be older and less white, basically. What will be the potential medical breakthroughs that we may see in the future leading up to 2040? Honestly, this is a subject that I pushed off because I'm not a doctor or ever went to medical school, so it's not a subject that I'm very much inclined in. But I've done some research and I've decided to make a few medical predictions. The US government will be spending much of the 2030s trying to gain and re-establish credibility amongst its agencies that regulate and monitor our health industry and the way we medically live our lives. Basically, they're going to try and undo as much of the damage that RFK Jr. has inflicted upon US medicine during his tenure as Health Secretary as they can. As has been the theme for several other of the topics that we have covered in these videos, AI will make its impact on the medical industry. It's going to be able to make doctors determine quicker and more accurate diagnoses, as well as determine more beneficial treatments for their patients. Telehealth appointments will increase in popularity over the next decade. Immunotherapies for cancer will see a big increase as AI and doctors will be able to create custom-made immunotherapies for each patient. We will also see an increase in animal organ to human transplantation in order to make up for the big deficit that we have in our international organ registries. Doctors already completed a successful pig kidney transplant in 2025. Scientists and doctors will also be utilizing genetic editing technologies like CRISPR to treat and or even cure many genetic ailments that afflict many people today. In 2025, doctors found a treatment to postpone the inevitable demise of Huntington's disease in patients by several years. So hopefully by 2040, the doctors and scientists can maybe push that few years to a few decades, or maybe even cure that disease outright. And they also have come up with a similar treatment for Alzheimer's that is currently postponing the effects of the disease by 12 to 18 months. But same thing, I hope that they can extend that out to a few years or even a few decades for future patients. Of course, companies are going to come out with new ways that patients can monitor vital, biological, metric data. Their doctors can specifically analyze this data in order to better help treat their patients, as well as potentially catch a crisis before it happens. Robots will be taking a bigger role in administering care to patients within hospitals and nursing home facilities, freeing up tasks for nurses so that they can take on more complex projects and tend to their patients in a better way than they already currently do. So this prediction is more of a wish, but hopefully by 2040 they can reduce recovery time for ligament tears, specifically in the knees, like ACL and MCL tears, for athletes from months to weeks. Instead of 9 to 12 months for recovery, they can make it more like 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, that would revolutionize sports medicine in so many ways, but I think it's one of those medical mysteries that's gonna really take a lot of effort to solve, and I don't know if they will find a cure for that, but it would be great if they do by 2040. Alright, that's all I'm going to cover for my predictions on the medical advancements that we may see in the future. What predictions do you think I got correct? Which ones do you disagree with? Originally, I planned on making a short video where I was just going to shoot the shit and make a few guesses. Then my 2030 video turned into a near 40-minute documentary, and this video turned out to be even longer. That's why I decided to break it up into 3 parts. I tried to cover every topic I could think of, plus a few that were recommended. If you stayed to watch and listen to the entire series, thank you and I appreciate it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day.